Right there. Nigel. Right there. No. Hey, hi, hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess, and this was an unplanned episode installment of CommuniTEA, so it's kind of a mess. I'm kind of a mess. I really wasn't planning on doing this, but I was going through comments on my video and DMs on Twitter and on Facebook. No. Get down! I was going through my comments on my last video, and I was going through DMs on Instagram, Twitter, going through notifications, and saw some things, and I was like, I'm just gonna do a video right now. So this is kind of not planned, so there might be a lot of editing because I just read through a bunch of stuff. So bear with me, but let's just do it. Also, I'd like to say that before I recorded this, I was just looking at the news article, so I used the term child. But I was looking online and found a better phrase for child sexual abuse material. So I apologize if the other phrase is harmful or inappropriate. I didn't realize that before recording, but I just wanted to make you aware before going further into the video that mention of that is included and that I refer to it as child, the P word, instead of child sexual abuse material. Someone sent this to me maybe a couple weeks ago, and I'm sorry, I'm just getting to it. If you follow me on Instagram, then you know that I sometimes take a while to respond to messages just because I get really anxious when I have too many. But anywho, this is about US Poetry Magazine, which I wasn't aware of. I don't read poetry myself. However, it is the US's prestigious poetry magazine, and they decided to publish a poem by a formerly incarcerated man, which, okay, fine. They want to uplift incarcerated voices, you know, give them a second chance. That's great. However, this person, Kirk Nesset, was in prison for the possession and distribution of child. So, Kirk Nesset was a former professor at Allegheny College, and he taught English literature. He was released from federal prison last year. So he was arrested and prosecuted on 3 counts of possessing, receiving, and distributing child in 2014. And so as a part of his sentencing, he has to remain on the sex offender registry and report to sex offender and mental therapy. And so he's permitted to have access to a computer and the internet, but it will be monitored, and he's not permitted to be near children for prolonged periods of time. So 1, I think his sentence was already too fucking short, and then 2, it's just gross. And so Poetry Magazine decided to have a special edition dedicated to incarcerated poets. And they told critics that it's not our role to further judge or punish people as a result of their criminal convictions, which I am all for. There are so many people who have been in prison wrongly accused or for minor crimes, or that have taken the time and have had the privilege to rehabilitate their lives and definitely deserve a second chance. However, it is in my opinion, I don't know if you can be rehabilitated from a crime such as he committed. So the magazine is, I mean, it's been running since 1912, so it, you know, very prominent. And this issue, I think that came out this month, focused on currently and formerly incarcerated people, their families, and prison workers. So it included his poem. When a reader asked why they were including that, they said they didn't have knowledge of contributors' backgrounds because the editorial principle for this issue was to widen access to publication for writers inside prison and to expand access to poetry, bearing in mind biases against the barriers for incarcerated people. We recognize the life-shattering impact of violence and denounce harm, the magazine said in a statement on Twitter. People in prison have been sentenced and have served those sentences. It is not our role to further judge or punish them as a result of their criminal convictions. As editors, our role is to read poems and facilitate conversations around contemporary poetry. We maintain that these poems are an expression of a human experience and that poetry is a force to advance human engagement and critical self-reflection. We hope the poetry in this issue facilitates deep and empathetic reading and extends our discourse. One of the editors of the magazine reiterated that she and her fellow editors had not known about the charges against the poets they included. Tara Betts said, "I can say that I had no intent to perpetuate further harm. I'm going to be honest about my life. I barely escaped being a survivor myself. I've counseled many friends, many family members, and former students who are survivors, including incarcerated people. I'm heartbroken about hurting anyone or making them revisit their pain. I'm also devastated by policing and prisons and how these are overtly racist and classist systems that protect property over people. What happens when those hurts overlap?" So there was a petition that people were signing to have his work removed from the magazine, saying that his time served does not equate to the lifetime of emotional, physical, and psychological trauma of victims of child and sexual assault endure. And another poet that was featured in the issue expressed her deep disappointment in the situation and the lack of foresight and sensitivity that led to it. They also faced criticism last year when people signed a letter about their brief and watery response to Black Lives Matter. The foundation and magazine had said that they stand in solidarity with the Black community and denounce injustice and systemic racism. But people who signed the letter said the foundation has been asked for years to redistribute its enormous resources to marginalized artists, and they have not done enough. So some writers were saying they would not submit any more work to the magazine until the demands were met, which included the resignation of Poetry Foundation President and Board of Trustees Chair, as well as for the significantly greater allocation of financial resources toward work, which is explicitly anti-racist in nature. And so both the president and the chair resigned. I think the latter part about the resignation is in response to the Black Lives Matter letter and not to the poetry submission by Kirk Nesset. But the idea is wonderful because, like it said, like that people have served their sentences and they deserve another chance. I get that, and maybe y'all didn't know that he had what his crimes were, but I think once people pointed that out, that's harmful. Well, I don't think they should include his poems. It's a totally different conversation to get into the whole prison industrial complex. And I mean, I just finished reading The New Jim Crow a few days ago, so it's really fresh in my mind. However, not saying that white people who come out of prison don't deserve, rights and access and opportunities. However, this person, is it because he's white and he was a former professor that they're okay with publishing his poem even though his crimes were so gross? I don't know. Someone sent that to me and I read it and I thought, that was disgusting. I personally do not agree with them including his poetry in that collection. The idea of centering currently and formerly incarcerated people in general, I love that. But I think you need to take the time to actually look at the crimes. But then I know that becomes complicated because not everyone is actually guilty. I don't know. Just particularly in this one, I think once you knew what he did, that you should have taken that out. And that's just my opinion. I don't know. Anyway, I just wanted to share that. Also in Tuesday's video, I briefly mentioned an agent, Brooks Sherman, who's a pretty well-known agent, and allegations against him. There were sexual assault allegations, but also that he's just been really shitty to former clients, like ghosting them, not reading their manuscript, etc., etc. You can watch that video if you want to learn about that. But there was more, and someone mentioned another agent in the comments that I hadn't heard of, and so I went and did a little Google and was on Twitter, and someone tagged me in something else about another agent on Twitter, so I just wanted to bring those up really quickly as well because I wasn't just trying to focus on Brooks. That was just the one I was seeing tweets about. So this first one, in general, there is a big discussion about agents, literary agents on Twitter. A lot of people are chiming in, agents themselves and authors, about things you should be aware of when looking for an agent, things you should expect your agent to do, things they shouldn't do. So if you are looking for an agent, I know Twitter is not the best place for everyone, but they definitely are sharing some really helpful information on Twitter. This is an agent who wrote a pretty long thread, but I thought it was really important and it brings up something I had not heard of. And so I'm going to go through the thread and talk about two agents in specific that have been named and what they have done. So this is from Alyssa Jeanette, who is a literary agent. And the thread starts with, there's one aspect of agent and author behavior I haven't seen discussed in the course of, well, ever. Fair warning, it's touchy. Let's talk about poaching. What is poaching? Poaching is when an agent, say agent B, knowingly pursues, or in some cases allows themselves to be pursued by, an author with an established and ongoing relationship with another agent, agent A. Perhaps Agent A has already invested time and effort and sold books for this author and helped establish the author's promising career. Perhaps not. Perhaps they have a very functional, even successful working relationship. Perhaps not. I bet a few established authors you know have had an Agent B pop up after a big sale or impressive release. Maybe the author even left A to go to B. Poaching is, in my opinion, slimy and unethical, but it happens. There is typically very little recourse, usually zero, for Agents A. From the outside, poaching can look like trading up. For some authors or agents, maybe this seems like a matter of course. The bigger or more successful an author gets, the bigger their agency should be, right? To be fair, only the client can decide that. No author should feel pressure to stay with an agent that isn't a fit for them. If an author is having a rough patch with A, an offer from B, especially a bigger Agent B, can seem seductive. And B gets the benefit of an established name without having to lay groundwork. But no matter what rough patch you may or may not be going through, it is always best to communicate with your Agent A, preferably before things get so bad that you'd rather jump ship abruptly than have a conversation with, ostensibly, your business partner. Agents understand that partnerships may end. We know this is a competitive business. That's okay. Here comes a big, important part. But agents and authors assume an equitable business partnership, and that means agents deserve the same courtesy of communication and investment that authors rightly expect. I don't think poaching is necessarily the sign of an incompetent agent. I don't think it's cancel-worthy, but it's not a transparent or ethical practice. It will harm your relationship with your former agent. And is it really the best foot to start your new agent relationship on? Keep in mind, if you still have books on sub deals in the works, you may still have to work with Agent A until those are complete. You'll still receive your royalty payments, may you be so lucky as to receive them, through Agent A, their agency, in perpetuity. Be thoughtful. I hope in all this discussion about good ethical behavior that authors can have the grace, courtesy, and respect to sever their existing agent relationship fully before having conversations about representation with other agents. I especially hope that Agents B can have the grace, courtesy, and respect to both avoid pursuing agented authors and to tell agented authors who pursue them to sever their relationship with their Agent A's before entertaining discussions and representation. And there is more, because someone did ask a question about, so are you not allowed to look for other agents while you're still agented? And there's another thread about that. And so I had never heard of poaching in this context before, but I think that's really interesting, especially the part about, an author already published a book, a big success, and then somebody coming in after that first agent already did the work. That does feel a bit shady to me. So I just thought that was interesting. And so this was quote tweeted by someone, and I'm not going to share the tweet because I have learned my lesson in a video a few weeks back where someone was talking about an author who has an intense fan base, and they kind of asterisked out the name, so if you just typed in their full name, it wouldn't come up. And so this person did that but spelled the name differently. So now I've learned that they're trying to avoid those people finding them. This isn't an author though, this is about a literary agent. So I'm going to tread lightly on how I talk about this, because it has been mentioned that this literary agent is very basically quick to sue people. And so I'm not making any statements. Nothing here is factual. These are allegations, and I'm just reiterating them here. So just my opinion, I'm gonna go ahead and say that. So poaching, this person said that poaching could be used as a silencing technique for sketchy but big agencies. And it can, so poaching from authors might not just be them looking to work with more established writers. They could have more nefarious purposes behind it. And so this seems to be a thing that happens with said literary agent, that when people are being really successful or they're mentioned, they tend to go after people's authors who already have agents. And so this agent's name is Mark Gottlieb. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it, but he is a literary agent for Trident Media Group. And Trident Media Group was founded by his father, Robert, and he works for his father, but he has been put on a beware list for reasons. And there was an article that was with, was it Publishers Weekly or something? And I couldn't read the whole thing because I'm like not a member. But so Mark resigned from AAR, which is Association of Authors or Representatives. So he resigned after the ethics committee recommended his expulsion. So I don't know exactly why Mark was recommended for expulsion. So like I said, I can't get the full article, but one thing I did see was that they recommended his expulsion. One thing from a former client was that he offered to furnish submission lists for her manuscript only if she retracted her complaint to the AAR. And so I'm sure there's more, but I cannot see it. I guess I'm gonna have to start signing up to be members of these websites so I can see full articles. And the only other thing I was able to find, because every time something was linked, it was like no longer there. So I don't know if there was a lawsuit or people just got really scared and deleted their blogs or whatever. But apparently they he likes to use a spam approach with authors. So he'll sign a bunch of them at once, but it's actually not a contract. And then he bombards editors with his clients' manuscripts. So instead of like tailoring it to specific, he just sends them all out to people. And a lot of editors have started to like mark his emails as spam. So he's just trying to get a bunch of people at once and telling him he's signing them, but he's not really, and just trying to see what sticks, I guess. Again, these are allegations. I don't know if it's true. It was hard to find anything concrete because everything was either deleted or like restricted. So that's just a beware, I guess, just a note of caution around that literary agent. But then, so another agent that is a big no is Barry Goldblatt. So this thread was shared by Mickey Kendall. So Kendall said, I've talked about this before, but for anyone new here, if you ask me about Barry Goldblatt as an agent, my answer is no. I've never worked with him. He's never been my agent, and yet the answer is still no. He is not the only one to watch out for, but he's on my no list. And so this was a web of threads. So she has a thread and then she links to someone else who talks about their experience with Barry, who links to someone else who talked about their experience, which links to another thread by Mickey Kendall, and then a link to a Facebook post that she did in 2019. So it's quite a web. But the general summation that I got from it is Barry Goldblatt has a history of being very inappropriate at events, which seems to be a theme, and he seemed to get really upset with Mickey when she didn't want to work with him, even though like they didn't have any kind of like prior relationship or hadn't even discussed it. I guess he just asked her at an event and she said no, and he got just very upset and like, you know, like verbally violent towards her. He also there's been rumors. There were also allegations of like sexual harassment at these events to her and to other people. Someone else said at an event that someone was like, at an event, there was a young girl, I think like 15 or something. I don't know if she had submitted a book, but he was basically yelling at her to explain like how her magic system worked, and basically yelled at her until she was crying. So he just has a history of being a really nasty person, and people are saying to be aware of him as an agent. Someone who was a client of his said that he never explained his behavior at the convention that he yelled at Mickey Kendall, and he just said he was being belligerent because he had blacked out from being intoxicated, and like that's not an excuse. Another thread was talking about this and saying, you know, why this has been going on for multiple years. This isn't the first time it's come up, and there were multiple incidents before this one at this convention. And I thought a great quote was like, why has this been kept quiet? And I said, this is not about protecting the person who did it. This is about giving people who would face career damage from that person being named right now time to work some things out. It's not easy to extricate yourself personally or professionally from it. They also said, I've heard dozens of stories about interaction with clients, potential clients, and writers at cons that concerned me. I'm not being vague to excite your imagination, but I will say these stories fall under the category of this man is not acting like a professional. And this was back in 2020. Someone else said, warning to writers, the agent Barry Goldblatt has opened up to queries again. Last year, he publicly sexually harassed a close friend at a convention in front of multiple witnesses because she wouldn't sign with him. He often creeps on young female writers on Twitter. I would strongly advise female authors not to query with Barry. He is not safe. If you were planning to query him, I'd be more than happy to provide you with a whole list of agents who won't try to grope you in public. So that is just, seems like multiple people have had really nasty encounters with him, and that he is repeatedly not professional and gross. So those are 2 more agents to watch out for. Obviously, I am relaying this information of these allegations. I'm not saying any of this is 100% fact. I'm just telling you. I just wanted to add to the Brooke Sherman thing of yesterday, because he is not the only one behaving badly. But yeah, anyway, that was just a short addendum to this week's tea. There are some other things, but I just thought those were very pressing because everyone on Twitter is talking about agents right now. So I just thought that was pressing. And then the story about the poet was just disgusting. And I feel like that magazine should be ashamed and they should remove that. So that was it. Not super long. Thank you for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe and hit that notification bell. Always make sure you check out my description box. It always has information. If I have any threads or blog posts or anything, I can links to things that are going on in the world, ways to support my channel, links to my social media if you want to follow Nigel and I. And that's really it. So I'll see you later. Also, question, if you made it this far, if you like reading vlogs, do you like reading vlogs to be focused on like one book or like multiple books? Question. Thank you for your answer in advance, but we'll see you next time. Bye. Nigel, when's your birthday? How old are you gonna be? Are you excited about your birthday? Are you excited about your cake? Are you excited about your presents? I'm excited about your presents. I'm excited about my cake. Did you know it's my birthday too? You're gonna be a big boy? But you're still a baby? You still a baby? You always mama's baby. You'll always be my baby. Having a run. That can do nothing. Oh, Nigel, you can never escape me. Oh, darling, 'cause you'll always be my baby. My baby.